today my topic's about Germany's military power and strategic culture in 2011. And I will talk about first about the historical impact from the two world wars, and now the strategic cultural constraints and some evidence of how the German government now related to world affairs globally. And at the end, we'll talk about why, what is the mechanism behind the structure now. First, let's talk about historical.
You have the keyboard here. Go ahead.
First is the historical impact. We know that from World War II, after the defeat of German's troops, and there is this period that they don't have the army. Then I think World War II and World War I gave them strong self-reflection on their defeated and the German troops thinking about become very cautious about using their armed force. And in the Cold War, Federal Republic of Germany was founded so we can see the Federal Republic of Germany was founded in 1949 without a military, and it's only rearmed until 1954. And but during the Cold War period, the threat of the Soviet Union gave Germany still the need to have their own forces defense. And after the reunification, the West German and the East German troops go together and build a new Bundeswehr that is now their military efforts. And at the end of the Cold War, but at the end of the Cold War, now in this period, since the German is one of the largest countries in Europe and still have great international impact, I think Borjik in 2001 said something like, now we are not only the consumer of the safe net giving us from NATO and from EU, we are now one of the producers to keep peace all over the world. So that's why I think Germany now started to take bigger responsibility in world security. And the strategic culture. For the strategic culture, after the World War II, the main strategic culture is the strategic culture of restraint, and there are two competing schools of thought. The first is never again, the anti-militarism, and the second is never again alone. One is never again war, another is never again alone, is the multilateralism. I think this kind of two thoughts. First is they think when they involve in war, they will got chaos, and at the end, it's just a lose situation for the whole world. So they try to be they are very cautious towards sending troops and involving warfares around the world. The second is they're never again alone. They think that Germany's power, for each time they go for the welfare themselves, it seems to get chaos. So they try to using their foreign policy and the military affair within the EU integration or within NATO. And for the evidence of restraint, first is they don't involve in the Gulf War in 1991. And they're the first Western powers to say no to the Iraq to George W. Bush at that time. And German citizens now have 65% of the rate that they against the war in Iraq, and it's always being that rate. And in 2011, I think Angela Merkel said they want to withdraw troops from the Iraq and have less involvement. I think the German for this period, they have less budget on the military affairs, and after the financial crisis, the whole Europe is cutting down their military budget in a way, and so this is some evidence of restraint. Though in the Libya case, at first they don't want to send troops, and have take a very strong stance of not say okay to the no-fly zone and for all these, but at the end, they now still involved in the case. So I think for the whole Europe, the Libya case is kind of test for their military capacity and for the organization of the whole NATO's to go on the warfare. And now talk about Bundeswehr. Is the German troops, and they're first structured in 1955, and after the 1990s, the Western and Eastern Germany unified. They're having another restructure, and the citizen in uniform is the idea raised by the Bundeswehr. Their meaning is that they have the voting right and personalities. They're not like robots and only obey to orders, such as the German troops beside the World War. So they think that there's one of the lessons they've taken from past experience is that people need their thoughts and the question to the authority and the government, and then the troops will become, even if they're less efficiency, they can have more, they won't do things in one extreme, and that is better for the whole society. And they have more EU attitude, that they name themselves as the in the body of the EU, and to have the missions within the institution. And at the end, I will talk about the Bundestag. That is why one of the things I asked about my professor and some German friends is that Bundestag, their parliament have more rights than have more power than the other parliaments of other countries. For example, the U.S. president can have the right to say they want to send troops to other countries, but for Germany's case, only if the parliament Bundestag have more superior voting for one project, then they have the right to send troops. So Angela Merkel don't have that kind of strong power for deciding the warfare. And why it is the case, because of the constitutional court. German have a very strong background and organized by their laws and their court. And the constitutional court in 1994, one of their chapters is saying that it gave Bundestag the superior right for deciding about warfare, and they had their superior than the federal government for deciding sending troops and deployment. That's the end of my presentation.
Questions?